What's up, everybody? Welcome to Essential Viewing AYCH Movie Podcast, where we watch a movie and tell you whether or not it's essential viewing. My name's Jonathan, and with me I got my lovely co-host,
Cody. Cinematic Cult.
That Cannon guy's back in the house, yo.
Woo, woo, woo. Welcome.
It's Pulp Free Pat.
Oh.
It's Wenzel.
Alrighty.
We're full of fiction.
What?
Like Pulp Fiction?
The pulpiest of fiction.
Squeeze it out.
Alright.
I hate pulp so much.
I love pulp. Pulp and orange juice is delicious.
No, what the fuck?
I like how it hits my teeth.
It's just chewed.
Sorry,
I
Jonathan.
love chewing. You're fucking disgusting.
No, this is great. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, it's like, wow, you guys already do a lot of movie stuff with your non-canon files and stuff like that. Well, the purpose of this is kind of to do like older classics, cult classics, midnight movies, movies you might have missed, movies you might not have known about, try to introduce you to them. Also kind of keep it a little casual, but a little analytical. Introduce you to some like film studies type of thing, help you hopefully appreciate films more. So, want to go around the room, or let me tell you what movie we're covering tonight, which is 1994's Pulp Fiction, directed by Quentin Tarantino, starring Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta, Uma Thurman, and Bruce Willis. And
a few other people.
And a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And feet.
Lots of feet.
Featuring a lot of feet. Anywho, well, we're going to go around the room, give like first, or your experience with the movie, first impression, things like that. We'll start with Cody.
So Pulp Fiction to me is a movie that kind of, I don't want to say kickstarted my cinematic enjoyment, but it was definitely a movie that I had not necessarily, prior to watching Pulp Fiction, I don't really remember movies as well. Like, movies were just a quick snippet. There wasn't really any depth to movies to me. And then I watched Pulp Fiction for the first time, I don't know, I guess like 10 years ago maybe.
Yeah, it was probably high school.
Yeah, it was like early high school, late middle school, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And it just kickstarted my whole like love of film and cinematography and movies, and because of the way it told stories, and it really solidified my love for dialogue. If you can't tell by my persistent talking throughout these podcasts that we listen to. So I've seen Pulp Fiction.
What?
I've seen Pulp Fiction, Wenzel. Can you hear me over there?
No, I just didn't. I didn't know you were a talking kind of person. You're always so quiet.
Oh, thank you. I'm a shy.
Those weren't compliments, but
I'm shy.
Oh, ooh woo.
On TikTok, I'm not even on TikTok.
I was really hoping that was a joke.
Okay, first of all, TikToks are fantastic. TikTok is the best thing since. Honestly, it's the best thing.
We need to have a whole nother separate podcast.
We're not going to talk about that. The TikToks of the week. It's like a 10-minute special talking about the TikTok trends.
No.
Oh, anyways.
No.
I've seen Pulp Fiction since then. I don't rewatch movies a lot. I really don't. But Pulp Fiction,
it's tough.
I've seen like 6 or 7 times now.
Wow.
It's a lot. I've seen it quite a bit of times just for the fact that it's such a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I watch it, I come away remembering something more about it. So that's my experience with Pulp Fiction. Now that I've run up everyone else's time about...
No, I mean, no, that's fair. I mean, it's like unless there's a movie that just really, really speaks to you, you know, of course, I don't really rewatch many movies, but some of them that we're going to be doing later, I have rewatched several times. Stay tuned. Go Colt.
Okay. My previous experience with
all right, Cannon.
Pulp Fiction was I've only seen it once before, and the one time that I did watch it, I was a kid. I did not know what was going on, but I did enjoy it, and I remember it. I don't really remember it, but I do remember going in the basement because Cody said, "Come on and watch Pulp Fiction with us in the basement." And we did. It sounds sketchy, I know. But it was good.
Jonathan was there too.
Even sketchier.
But I like it. It's a good movie. I've only seen it two times.
Okay. All right, thanks, Cole.
Thank you.
Wenzel's fucking interrupting me, little bitch. You stuttered my brain.
This fucker was wearing a pillow on his head like a hat. I had to get him.
Okay.
Even though I've done it before, you know.
Sonic
but this,
mask was brought out at one point.
It's still in my bits. All right, go Cannon.
I too, the first time I ever saw Pulp Fiction, I was way too fucking young to be watching Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So, I've seen this movie many times. I've really enjoyed this movie. Tonight was the first time in at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 years since I've watched it, and I still really enjoy it. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it was either Cinemax, Showtime, one of those movie channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always one of those movies where if there's fuck all on, I can just, if it's on one of the channels, I can just start it from any point. Just like, all right, I'm going to go watch it. I like how the story just, jumps around, like how it tells specific stories. The characters, some crazy fucking characters in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And, I enjoy a majority of Quentin Tarantino's work.
Leave it at that.
I feel like I have the most unique perspective in the viewing room tonight because it was this is my very first time ever seeing Pulp Fiction.
Wow. Popped
shocking,
it.
I
We
know.
popped you tonight.
So it was definitely I enjoyed the movie. It was definitely an interesting perspective, sort of coming into the movie just like this pop cultural knowledge. Like the movie is so well known, it's so like ingrained in pop culture that literally like the first time I encountered Pulp Fiction was like in like a Simpsons parody of it.
Oh wow.
And then just the different famous scenes throughout everybody knows from the movie just throughout life. And it was a very interesting movie. And once we start getting our conversation going, get into nitty gritty, I'm definitely interested to talk about it. But first time viewing, I liked it. It was very enjoyable.
Yay.
Did you blow your load? Did you blow your load?
Did you blow your load?
Did you blow your load?
Did you blow your load?
He was holding it in.
I like the idea that that's what it sounds.
It's his wiener sphincter. That's how he's able to keep it in.
Oh God.
Pat's a redhead. Their anatomy's different than ours.
No, that's fair. There's claws.
Is
that true?
He's like Nova, my cat. Got hooks on his wiener.
Oh man, I'm
like all
glad.
cats do.
I'm glad we could fit cat dick on the podcast.
Me too.
I'm not. No,
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near here.
You're the one that brought it up. Anyway,
No, did I?
actually,
You asked it. You said,
They held it in.
no.
You asked, did you blow your load to Pat?
No, I mean before the
Okay,
podcast.
God, shut the fuck up.
Like Cole, last time I saw this movie was when I was 12. I didn't know what it was that time when I wanted to be like part of, know what's going on in the pop culture and stuff. So I watched it, thought it was a good movie, had no idea what the fuck was going on. Like, I mean, I knew what was going on, but like, of course, at the time, I don't understand, themes or looking in deeper into cinematography and stuff. So, of course, but now watching it again, it was like sort of having like fresh eyes because I lost my shit as I lost my shit the first time. And yeah, it's a great movie. And I can't wait to really get deep into it. So
It's really cool how you watch movies. Personally, I know it's your turn, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's really cool how you watch movies and from like a young age to an older age. And this is something that I guess we're going to touch on a lot in this podcast in particular is specifically how you can watch movies at a young age, have one perspective, watch it middle age, have a different perspective than the first time because you're kind of understanding a little bit more.
Yeah.
nuance.
Are any of us middle aged?
No, I'm talking about like as a 12-year-old versus like 18 years old versus 25 years old. As you go through that piece, like what I picked up when I was 12 years old is nowhere near what I picked up when I was 18, and when I was 18 was way different from what I picked up now. So movies transform, they change social context, and things like that. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, I'd assume.
Definitely. I remember, God, I had to have been 14 or 15 when I first found this movie. And I remember I had a friend who was just really huge into movies, and I kind of looked up to him. I'm like, you got to show me all these movies. He's like, okay, I'll show you this one. And I remember, first off, like, that was the first time I've ever heard the word fuck said so many times in a movie. And I was like, what? You can do that?
Yeah, it did not summon the devil.
Exactly.
Unbeknownst to our 12-year-old brains.
Yeah.
13-year-old brains.
Exactly. And also as well, like, it was just like a movie that was just propelled almost entirely by dialogue. It was like, I'm like engaged the entire time. You know, beforehand, you know, you super into, you know, kind of the Lucas Spielberg 80s action movies, which are great. But this was like the first time I saw movies as something to like dissect and analyze. And around this time I was also getting into like English literature and things like that. And it's like, oh, I can apply those things to school, to movies.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I want to like try to do with this podcast as well.
Kind of pull things apart.
Yeah, and I think this is also like a really good movie to do that with.
I think it is too.
I don't know, like, and like Cody was saying, every time I watch this movie, I come out with something different. Some opinions about certain scenes change. It's just a real. It's amazing how, you know, you watch some movies and it's like, okay, I have the same opinion from the first time I saw it to like each time I see it. It's like, oh, there's nothing much I can get out of it. But with this one, it's one of those movies that definitely has a lot of rewatch value.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to be more of a person who is into rewatching movies because when I was talking about earlier about like when you a first viewing of a movie is you taking that movie at face value, what it's giving you, and you're just experiencing it for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Second, third, fourth times you watch it, you're actually breaking it down piece by piece, and you're starting to see scenes in a different way than scenes different from the whole of the movie. And this is much easier with this type, with especially with Pulp Fiction, mainly for the fact that, you know, it's broken into chapters and sections that are also broken away from a timeline. So
yeah,
I think it's a fantastic movie to actually break down. And honestly, it's a good,
it's literally a fucking puzzle.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a puzzle.
And it's also a movie, we'll probably get into this with later movies that we watch, but if you ever like venture into any sort of art film or any sort of like, quote, like high art or whatever, there is this tendency to where it just becomes more laborious and homework.
Right.
Whereas
art
like
house type films where it's just like a few years ago in Antichrist with Willem Dafoe and
and I have very strong feelings about Lars.
I would
von
actually
Trier.
like to do that on this podcast as
You
well.
know, I think
I definitely do too.
I think it's on our large list. I think.
I'm pretty sure it is,
Yeah.
but he is a controversial figure we'll get to later. Fuck, I lost what I was talking about.
Nice job, Cody.
The Antichrist is
sorry.
pretty, you know,
It's just
controversial.
laborious. It's
It was
laborious,
just kind of like, you see the artistic craft that goes into it, but it's not enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas like this movie, even on a superficial level, is just fun.
It's
Yeah,
engaging.
yeah.
Like, you feel engaged with the characters. I do want to mention, just before we go into the rest of this movie, is that this movie is a product of its time.
Very much so.
In a lot of ways.
But then again, I feel like they could have dialed it down. It's 94.
Yeah. I mean, but you know,
Yeah.
but the thing, and I should mention that this is a product of its time. There are some, if you do decide to watch it, if this is your first time watching this movie, and you want to watch this movie, if you're listening to this podcast, and we don't want to spoil anything for you right here, after this little thing I spill right here, full spoilers ahead, okay?
Yeah.
But I do want to say is that there is a lot of violence. There is rape. There is rape that is tilted to be humorous, which can be kind of damaging. There is racial terms from both sides.
Beginning to the end of the movie.
Beginning in the movie, no one is safe with racial terms here. This is every gambit piece that you can imagine. So it is a very controversial movie in that aspect. Tarantino himself has controversy around him, and none of that is excusable, but this is a product of its time, and we do want to just give you that warning before you go off and watch this movie and feel traumatized afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and I've heard, like, I remember after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I forget, it might have been the fucking boogeyman herself, Anita Sarkeesian, came out of that movie and was like,
God.
I hope Tarantino never makes a film again because of all the stuff in that movie. And it's like,
I would ask, but I still haven't seen that movie. So
it's one of those things like, well, after that movie, I'm like, I kind of don't blame you. But We'll talk about that as we go along. And like I said, we also want to be critical. Like it might sound like as we're going around the room, it's a bunch of
just a bunch
dudes
of
just
jerking each other off.
Yeah, we love Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is the height of masculinity. Have you seen Samuel L. Jackson without a shirt on getting sprayed with a water hose? Totally straight. No, it's have you seen?
Okay, Cody. This movie isn't Fight Club.
Have you seen Uma Thurman's feet?
Oh yeah, bro.
Oh man.
Can we talk about her feet for a little bit more?
Okay, I think Colt's starting to.
So
Cody's like,
we
no, we're not going.
We
on
started here.
we can't. All we can say is that because there is people who haven't seen later movies here. Tarantino has a foot fetish, and it was only brought to light really in the past year or so. And so,
Well, I mean, I mean, it's kind of a thing where it was like, oh, haha, it was kind of like a joke, and then
Wiggle your
once you
big toe.
really notice it, it's like, oh fuck, there's a lot of feet.
Like literally one of the DVDs in the box that we watched Pulp Fiction from has naked feet on it.
Yeah. So
naked feet.
Yeah. But I do think we need to.
I mean,
Where should we start from the beginning of the movie here?
Okay, well, where I would like to start is probably the biggest thing that jumped out at me the first time I watched this was like, what the fuck, you can tell a movie out of chronological order?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do people think about that, like, plot structure, and how do you think that works in the movie's favor?
I used to hate this because I remember when we first watched it, I was so confused. I did not know how to follow it. Then again, I was 12.
Yeah.
But now that I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate this. It's fun putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would like to. The person who I want to hear the opinion on this is Patrick. What did you think about the non-chronological order, it being out of place, and things like that?
No, it is very interesting to tell a story like not in a non-linear fashion, non-chronologically, and it is sort of fun to see all the different perspectives in one day, in one timeline, and just like different perspectives at different times. And it's a very interesting storytelling choice, and I liked it. And just another art in the sort of other directors I know they've sort of gone taking that and played it in different ways. Like there's an animated movie I saw that's telling two stories. One's taking place in chronological order, where it's taking from just as a regular sequence of time, but it's also at the same time it's telling a story that happened in the past in reverse chronological order. So like these two sort of passing stories happening interspaced with each other, and that was a really very interesting choice for me. Much in the same way with this film, and that's a choice that I really enjoyed, just seeing the different perspectives in time. Part of me wonders if there's a cut of this movie that puts it all together in chronological order.
I'm pretty sure there is.
Probably fan made.
I'm actually kind of interested in checking that out to see it in one go.
Maybe intercut with Phantom Mentis.
The Phantom at it.
Phantom
Mentalist.
Yeah. When I saw this movie as a little Canon Junior, like it's the part where spoilers when Vincent gets killed. And then he pops back up later in the movie. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? What the fuck's going on here?
Man.
Oh, little me was freaking.
Yeah, same. Dude, we're dumb kids.
And it was in that break in chronology, especially for younger Cody who watched this. It kind of in the same boat as Colt, kind of in the same boat as Ken, and kind of the same boat as Jonathan. I was frustrated because I'm like, why? Yeah. I was excited because I'm like, this is different, and I was surprised because I'm like, how does this work? How does this work? It was kind of all somewhere in the between, because I did not like it, but at my second watch through, I really enjoyed it and then this watch through, I didn't even really think of it that much. Yeah, and that was the interesting thing about this watch through, was that I looked at this, I just saw them as individual clips that were mashed together, and all these people are just intertwined and telling us it's like a storybook, which is the same characters. It's Winnie the Pooh, right? But,
this is a fucked up Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, just imagine like Samuel L. Jackson in like a Winnie the Pooh onesie. He's just, his face is glaring out from the hood,
blasting.
Say what one more goddamn time.
So many ways Tigger could be on screen.
I think there is. I think I saw like an artist rendition of Tigger and Pooh as Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, you have.
And
It was just them. And
I think I've seen this too.
yeah.
Okay.
Or hallucinating.
I mean,
Maybe mass hallucination.
Anywho, but yeah, no, I enjoyed the time. I think the time shift. I don't know what it. I don't. In this watch through, it was very difficult for me to sit here and think, what does it actually add to the movie, besides kind of just
Being
tying
fun.
it all together and being kind of fun and kind of funky, you know.
One thing that did surprise me, this being my first viewing, is that I only knew sort of the different sort of scenes out of context within just sort of general pop culture. So the fact that the movie is sort of essentially several vignettes sort of tied together, that was a surprise for me, because I was expecting it to be like, you know, like a standard film in some sort of chronological order. And so that was it wasn't like a shock. It was just like, it was a nice surprise to see it's a very unorthodox way of telling a story. But when you see everything together, it makes sense, because you're able to put the pieces together. Of course, we don't know quite the sort of spaces in time, but it just sort of adds to sort of a lot of the freestanding mysteries about the movie that get people when you need to talk about, think about, make theories, write papers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like Cody, whenever I watched it this time, even though it's only my second time, I didn't think about it. It just all kind of like worked. Yeah.
It just was much. The first few times I watched it, it threw me off. First one or two times, and by now it's just the inner mechanisms. It's like realizing that, you know, car can go into another gear or something. It's like the first time you do it, it's like, whoa, but now that I've watched it a few times, it's like smooth sailing, baby.
Yeah.
You know, just we on the road.
Exactly.
You know, and you get to experience the movie in full, and I really enjoy that. I love how the movie became easier to watch the more I watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's less of a complicated story and more of, damn, this is a really good story. I also let's just continue.
There's like, this definitely isn't the first thing to ever do this, but it did definitely popularize the whole non-linear storytelling concepts. But like you were saying, it's like, you know, the first couple times you're kind of like, at least with me, like, I was like super into it, but I was just kind of like, I'm here for the ride.
Yeah.
But like, I remember there's like some writers in literature I would read who kind of do similar things. And I remember, like, the first time I would read these people's novels, I'd be like, what? This is fucking comprehensible.
Yeah.
It also doesn't help that a lot of those are written in stream of consciousness, which is another barrier. But like, on a second read, it was like, oh my God, this makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
You know, you have the whole context of the story going in. And like we were saying earlier, like, I would definitely be interested in seeing a chronological cut of this movie.
Yeah.
But I think that would just rob the movie of a lot of tension. And like, on a surface level, like everyone's saying, it makes like this, not necessarily literal sense, but more intuitive sense. Every scene naturally progresses to another.
Yeah.
And even though there are a lot of anachronisms, and we were watching it on a really good TV and really good sound.
It was so...
It looked really good.
Yeah.
But and granted, I've seen this movie a countless number of times, and I started to see like little cracks, and I'm like, that has to be intentional. Because it was just like these little details you think they would catch, but I don't know. But like I was saying, like, on a surface level, it would just... I don't know how Tarantino and Roger Avery did this, but makes more sense if it was
out of place.
Yeah. And it kind of, and one thing I noticed this time in particular, it almost is, it kind of inverts on itself in a lot, if I'm making sense.
What do you mean?
Like, it starts out like in the same place. Like, the beginning is split from the beginning and the end of the movie, and then the end is like in the middle of the movie, and it kind of does this weird loop back into itself.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Which could get into deeper theories, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
You're experiencing Ragnarok in a way, in some sort of fashion of like the cycle of life and death in a way.
Yeah.
But like I am this time around, I was able to collect a little bit of a different viewpoint from like superficial to like this movie is to me is shallow water. Like this is how I viewed this movie this time. It was very shallow water. It's not very deep. It looks like it could be deep. Mm-hmm. There's tons of life. It is a beautiful coral reef in the shallows on the beach side, right? Mm-hmm. I don't see any. There was no real deepness there. Everything that looked deep kind of caught your attention, like the briefcase. Like, what the fuck was in the briefcase? Like, younger me was like boggled, like, oh, that's, his soul, or,
Well, there was, I think, a novelization of the movie was supposedly it was Marcellus's soul in the briefcase, and the Band-Aid was to cover up the 666 that was on the back of his head, and like Tarantino's own admission was like, we just did it as kind of a plot device. I mean, we kind of, we don't even know what it is, and it kind of doesn't matter.
But that's the depth. That's what I'm saying is that it looks deep, but it's not deep, but it's still teeming with life and complexity.
Oh yeah,
it's not like
for
an
sure.
empty shallowness. It's a shallowness that is complex, and it is this movie was much about fucking nothing. It does not affect the world in any way or fashion. This is just life stories of some gangsters fucking some shit up, and a boxer who fucked over these gangsters, and a gangster's boss who gets in a bad situation real quick.
So, okay,
and like
spoiler. Marcellus, the boss, gets fucking raped. And
yes.
I completely forgot about that.
I don't know how you forget about that.
That is...
I mean, you were 12 the first time.
I was 12, yeah, so I just forgot. And watching
Or
again,
repressed it.
And seeing again, like I said, seeing fresh, it was almost like having fresh eyes.
Yeah, there was an interesting thing that Tarantino kind of does is where he
says the N-word.
A lot of movies...
Yeah,
he does. There's a lot of movies where you see, where things are implied, right? That's what a lot of movies do. So like there was an implication like of rape happening in the scene where Bruce Willis was searching for a weapon. But then suddenly break down the door and you get to see it full butt ass like happening in the corner.
Yep.
And you're just kind of left in shock, whereas you're just assuming, oh, we're just going to listen to this happening. It's like kind of, ugh, and then he opens the door and it's like, oh. So that was like a briefcase moment, right? That was the briefcase in a way, was that door being open, so we got to see that. But you think that's going to happen with like the briefcase. You think that's going to happen with a lot of things. There's a lot of doors in this movie. If you've ever noticed, there's doors to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Where what's his name?
Vincent gets shot by Butch.
There's doors. They're standing in front of a door.
They go through a door to talk in front of a door, and then come back through the door to go through a door into that apartment.
Are you fucking with me right now?
No.
Because
there's a lot of door opening.
There's a
in
lot
that scene.
because they're literally going through an exit, but it's not like a regular exit where it's just there's no door. It's like literally they go through a door, stand in front of a door, talk about whatever foot massage, come back and then talk again in front of a door.
Yeah, and they're just standing from the door. And there's a lot of doors there, and that's almost like, and almost all the time those doors get opened.
Yeah.
Like actually every time the door gets opened. And I think that's kind of interesting whereas we get to see the lives in the briefcase. I mean, it's really not that deep. We can make it that deep, right?
The only place that didn't really have any doors was, or we didn't see many, was Marcellus's house, where it was just windows.
Yeah, it was a very open space where they're able to enact. But then again, there was a hallway that led down to a door. Very narrow passages, doorways, things like that. And I wonder if that's like a cinematography thing. Is that a story building thing? It forces them into small spaces where you're able to interact with somebody on a micro scale in a way. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, there was just a lot going on there, and
Yeah.
like we can make it deep. We can say those doors are actually the briefcase, and what you're viewing inside the briefcase is their life, or bullshit like that.
I mean, yeah.
You can see it from a cinematography perspective. I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry, but I just get really excited about these types of things because it's like these little things you start noticing. It's like, fuck, there's a lot of doors. Like,
Yeah.
Who thinks about that? Fuck, there's a lot of doors.
No, like no.
It's a definite motif.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you're hitting on sort of what, like, the depth of the movie itself, in the sense of
it's like
I don't want to, like, I want to wait to save my big diatribe of what this movie's about towards the end, because I was sitting at work the other day, because I kind of had a similar opinion or a similar thought like you the last time I watched this, where I'm like, this movie doesn't really have as much as I thought it did. And it also didn't help I had someone with me who was like, yeah, this movie isn't deep. I don't know what you see in it. And it was like, what? But then it kind of had this epiphany, and I felt like so stupid for when it happened. But it has to do with sort of knowing Tarantino and his philosophy on film. It's a very kind of meta thing. But kind of steering it back to the whole plot structure, like we were talking about. Were there any what was y'all's favorite segment of the movie? Why? Like, what? And are there any segments you would shorten or just, like, get rid of the movie?
ooh,
So best favorite and least favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if you like all of them, you like all of them. If you don't like any of them, you don't like any of them. That's your
Right.
preference.
Right.
The scene that I enjoyed the most was definitely when Bruce Willis was just leaving his house, and then he's chilling at the red light, and then Marcellus Wallace walks right in front of the car, and they just lock eyes, and he's like, motherfucker. And then it just cuts to Bruce Willis slamming on the pedal, running Marcellus Wallace over, and the chaos just ensues.
Yeah.
That is, hands down, my favorite scene in this
no,
whole
that's
movie.
real fucking.
And that
good.
really gets into, like, the whole idea of coincidence in this movie.
Yeah,
Which is a very big thing in here as well. It's like, wow, it's coincidental that they survived the bullet rain from the apartment. The Vince and Sam Jackson's character. I can't remember character
Jules.
names.
Jules.
Yeah, coincidence is big too. Yeah.
Yeah. And Marcel was just holding a box of donuts.
Yeah, he had a coffee,
Too.
How are you going to hit somebody when they're carrying donuts?
I know,
That
really,
is fucked.
really shitty.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the fact about one of the big things I really enjoy about that scene is that Bruce Willis got away.
Yeah.
He was free. He had a watch. He had a gangster that was supposed to be on him. He was dead in the bathtub. So that was one less person he had to worry about coming for him.
And a lot of all these vignettes kind of have a very similar, like, mini plot structure to them, where they like, everything is going according to plan, and then one thing fucks up.
Yeah.
Like with the Mia and Vincent storyline.
Yeah,
she
yeah.
snorts heroin, and you think it's like, oh, is this going to be about they're going to secretly fuck and Marcellus is going to find? No, she snorts heroin and she's ODing, and it kind of takes a left turn into Crazyville. Yeah. You have the Golden Watch where he runs into Marcellus right as he's basically won, and it's like, you motherfucker. And then probably the funniest line in the movie, oh man, I think I shot Marvin in the face.
That
like,
fuck.
Side note, this movie is so fucking quotable.
Yeah.
It's so iconic.
Samuel
yeah.
L. Jackson, easily the most quotable out of all of the
for sure.
people in the movie.
Tarantino is known for his dialogue. Like, he has perfected movie dialogue where a lot of people might seem it works so it just flows so naturally, and you do have to have good actors to do this type of dialogue. But his way of writing is so good, and he actually is a very good actor in this movie. I thought his acting was
No, I mean, I thought he was fair. Yeah,
It was the weakest acting in this movie, but let me tell you,
But he's definitely not a trained actor.
No,
either.
No.
but let me tell you, these other people that were acting in this movie are like top tier, so it's very difficult to be like
Comparing him, yeah.
So like, but he did a really good job, and his dialogue spoke for itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, even if we don't have much background on his character, the way he acted, like it just like he really fit into like kind of the little hints about his character from Jules and Vincent, which was very good. Mm-hmm. But Kenan, what about you? What was
favorite and least favorite?
Yeah, whatever.
What do you feel like?
Pick your
man,
poison.
This is a tough one.
And what I mean by part, I'm mostly talking about like the segments of the movie.
Yeah, like
themselves.
If you, I mean, if you
What
want to,
segment stood out to you, and for what reasons?
yeah,
I just I love the banter between Vincent and Jules, like in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Like that whole bit it's just fun to watch.
yeah.
They're just so natural around each other.
Yeah.
Like they're so themselves and so comfortable.
I have problems with Honey Bunny, especially towards the part where she's like freaking out. Like some weird accent is just poking out.
Yeah.
She says a different line both times. Did anybody else catch that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. There's like weird like continuity mistakes with the movie that I couldn't. They had to be intentional because they were obvious enough to where like if you're paying attention you would catch them, but like also not like super detrimental to the movie.
Yeah.
Plus, how good is it to see Bruce Willis actually trying? Oh man, I miss good old Bruce Willis, don't you?
Oh yeah,
Isn't that
definitely.
before
You know,
his
it's-
whole feud with Kevin Smith, where they just kind of like they're both shit to work with.
Last I've heard, they've patched up.
Oh, they have. That's good.
Like, but I don't know. Like, even John Travolta. Like this is a man who is starring in a film right now directed by Fred Durst. So
No.
yeah, by the way, we have to watch this, by the way. Look, I had no care in the world to see. I'm sorry I'm going off topic here, but
Yeah, you're good.
this fucking movie that John Travolta's in right now is called The Fanatic. And I was like, it's just another, straight to DVD movie. Then I find out that Captain Limp Bizkit himself is directing it. Oh, sign me the fuck up.
Yes,
I'm ready
let's
to
do
check
it.
this out.
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
But like Cannon was talking about with like seeing like some of these actors, it's like God, it's actually good to actually see him give a shit. Like
Yeah.
Even if he
something
barely
that
talks.
I like what Tarantino does is he really he has certain actors he loves, and even if they're like having the worst times of their career, he's like, I'm plucking you out of obscurity, motherfucker, and you're going to act good.
He's really good at viewing potential in characters
Yeah.
and people. He builds a character. It's almost like he has a seedling of a character in his mind. He sees this actor, and then that seedling grows around that actor.
Yes,
and that can get repetitive to some degree, depending on like later on in movies, you end up getting characters where, like Samuel L. Jackson kind of stays, similar character, and I'm not sure if that's Samuel L. Jackson or if that's Tarantino, but I've really only seen movies with Samuel L. Jackson in it. That is like Tarantino.
That is kind of more of his thing, where like Samuel L. Jackson to me is kind of like a Harrison Ford or a Chris Pratt, where
Yeah.
they have their one thing and they're really good at it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's nothing against them. Actually, a majority of actors are like that. Very rarely do you find like a Daniel Day-Lewis who can just do everything.
Yeah. What were we gonna say, Pat?
I was going to say, to your point, like about the seed, because so much of the dialogue feels conversational and very sort of natural between the actors. To me, it kind of feels like he gave them a basic idea for the character, and he just let the actors, just let them do what they wanted, let them sort of make up, and sort of like he just sort of just let the film go. He just let the camera roll, and they sort of. I don't know how much of the dialogue was improvised, or they were given a basic idea and they were just let to go with that. But it feels natural because to me it probably is natural because some of the best things in movies have been just sort of letting the actors do what felt natural to them in that scene, in their mind for that character, and I feel like that is why it resonates with a lot of people because it feels natural. It feels like some conversations people had. That's why Seinfeld is so resonant with a lot of people because it has just a very natural like cadence and feeling to the topic and how it just sort of meanders and it sort of comes back to a point, or just kind of goes off in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And those are sort of things. It feels genuine, and people respond to sincerity like that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
And kind of going off of that point, something it's not like a super problem I have with his later movies, but with this movie, the characters feel more, I guess, for lack of a better term, real.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, his later movies, like Inglourious Bastards, like, in particular, and, like, The Hateful Eight.
They feel larger than life.
They feel like movie characters.
Yeah.
Like, and that's definitely the intention he's going for.
Yeah.
But I feel like...
These could probably
Yeah.
be real people.
Yeah, and this was also, too, when, like, people had reins on him, and he wasn't just given carte blanche to do everything. And he's like, I'm going to make a 4-hour movie. We're going to turn it into a miniseries and put it on Netflix.
Well, I think with something like Inglourious Bastards, like, I think just with the idea and the setting, like, having real characters in such, like, a hyperbolic story and situation, that to me would feel like a clash, because
that is true.
So like you know, something like Inglourious Bastards, it is sort of like a very like crazy, sort of almost
Over the top,
cartoonish, like
ahistorical type of thing.
Yeah, because spoiler, in Inglourious Bastards they kill Hitler and it's a big explosion. So like it's obviously they're gonna like.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
They just say they killed the hell out of Hitler. So like to me, like he. As someone that's not as well versed in Tarantino's work in all of it, just like he sort of, you know, you have real life characters for a more quote grounded situation versus, you know, a very hyperbolic state with the other, like Inglourious Bastards or something. But because even the crazy things that happen in Pulp Fiction, you know, to me aren't that crazy, because, you know, think of how many stories we've heard throughout history or just what people have told us, just how bizarre and unbelievable real life can get. You know,
Yeah.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, and it kind of leads into that whole idea of coincidence, of just like how just random shit happens, and that's just kind of how life is.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the movie is kind of nihilistic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you get that because, you know, shit happens, and what you gonna do? But I was gonna say my favorite scene was actually towards the end, literally at the very end, where like the beginning comes back, and when Samuel L. Jackson, Jules, is pointing his gun at Ringo, and he starts quoting him that fake Bible verse, or not fake, but like sort of like semi-fake, yeah,
Embellished.
And he kind of like turns it on its head, and like he says, like, I am the tyranny of evil men. That, like you said, he is very quotable, and that is a good ass line.
Yeah.
And what's super awesome about that scene in particular is it's literally the same speech he gives at the beginning of the movie, but it is this more machismo, like he says at the end of the movie. I thought that was some ice cold blood shit to say before I shot a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then to see him kind of pull back for this more subdued, and I was watching an interview with Jackson where he was talking about auditioning for the part of Jules, and that was the scene that he had a audition with, and he said I planned all this stuff, you know, all the things I was going to do, and then I get in there and then just do what I did for the final scene where it was more like subdued, and that's how he got the part.
That's the first time watching that scene to where I was just like, I kind of got chills.
Same here.
Yeah.
When I was a lot younger, I'm just like, man, I'm ready for this long ass movie to be over with. But now, like watching it here, I was just like, oh, this is some good shit right here.
Yeah.
I definitely remember there's different parts in this movie. I saw Kenny like kind of straightened up and kind of leaned forward, it's like anticipation.
It really, because this is my favorite scene too. Now this used to not be my favorite scene. My old favorite scene was the cheeseburger scene.
Yeah.
That was my old favorite scene because it was so badass and it was scary. Like Samuel L. Jackson was this jackal. He was this kind of Loki type character that kind of comes in. He's a trickster and he's like leading these people on, and then suddenly he pulls the gun out on them and
Just shoots a guy.
And he's always in a position of power in the scene.
Yeah.
yeah,
Where-
it's scary.
Yeah, because like anytime any of the dudes try to move, he's, like this. He doesn't even have to
He doesn't-
say
yeah,
anything. He just
moves his hand.
Yeah.
and they like sit down, and he's just towering over him. And then when he really gets into it, and this is one thing I love about the cinematography, and this isn't the only time this happens in the movie, but the scene is the camera is looking up at him.
Yeah.
And it definitely displays that power when he's just like, say what again?
Say what? More time, motherfucker. I love this.
Don't.
But my favorite scene is this ending scene, specifically for the fact that it kind of is role reversal, and it also shows like that power again, but in a very like different capacity.
Yeah.
And a different willingness. I don't know. It was just a very different scene with same power, and it was scary.
Yeah, because it's like in the beginning it was him being a gangster, but now it's like he's even in different clothes too. He's gonna retire. It's just like it's completely just turned on its head, where it's like, like you said, like that was just some cold shit, but now it's like it's not some cold shit, and he's very religious. It's like it's some like he is in this moment acting like I can't even, I don't even know what to say, God or a demon or something, but he's in this moment he's acting super fucking powerful.
What I thought was interesting about Samuel L. Jackson's character is how for like a good chunk of the movie he's not in it, and how like you see he's at the very beginning, at the very end, and I feel like it's interesting how he has this huge life-changing realization over the course of the movie, and like in his time and the time of the movie, it's really like maybe a few hours, because the whole thing takes place like before noon or something.
Yeah,
and it's how you see him at the beginning of the movie. The first at the start of the movie, then like 2.5 hours later, he's a different person. And I feel like I thought that was a very interesting way to structure his sort of development over the course of the movies. How you have it's one day his life has changed. And in just in 2 hours, how you separate that, and I feel that's a good way sort of to give the character that space, even though that much time has happened in the course of the story. So you have like all these other things kind of fill the time. Sort of like in a kind of normal structured movie, a character has their arc, and you see it the entire time. But
yeah, because if it was in chronological order, then Samuel L. Jackson would have that realization at the beginning of the movie and be over with.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, where I was like all the narrative tension would just deflate from the movie.
One of the interesting things about that was that we were I just kind of realized is that beginning of the movie, he plays God. He has their life in his hands. He takes their life. God, he believes, God intervenes, saves his life, despite him just killing someone. And then in that moment where he kind of redeems himself, he plays God again and spares the man.
Yeah.
So he's sort of God in this movie. He's the ultimate gun.
Wait,
It's almost like the first part is Old Testament and the end is New Testament.
yeah.
Oh my God, are we getting deep here?
I mean, we gotta. I mean, there is a hierarchy within the movie. It's really weird.
Okay, I got it. Sam Jackson, fucking, what is his name? I forgot his name already.
Vincent?
John Travolta.
Oh, John Travolta.
God damn.
Both angels.
Hey, John Travolta's played an angel in a movie.
about to say
Michael. Boom.
Oh yeah, my God, I forgot that movie existed.
they played it all the time back on TNT.
Oh fuck.
And Stars. Stars wore that fucking movie out.
What movie was that?
He's the Archangel Michael. He's
literally called Michael.
Yeah, he's on Earth and
Never
He's
heard
just
of
like a
it.
devout dude.
having sex and eating sugar cereal.
Oh, all right.
It was this movie that came out in the late '90s. And I remember
Sounds like a late 90s movie.
there was this.
Sure, cereal.
There was one of these kids movies I had that was the preview before the movie, and I couldn't. It was like The Wizard of Oz or something. But we're getting off topic.
Yeah.
Real quick, I do want to get off topic real quick. Pulling back and kind of viewing cinematography history here, like movie history, like if the 50s were like golden age of Hollywood, the 90s were like, look at this dirty motherfucking city known as LA.
Yeah, especially early '90s.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of 70s movies, but with a lot more charisma.
Yeah, and a lot more like animated and like it's almost like
More exaggerated.
Yeah, a lot of 90s movies do that, just showing LA dirty fucking place.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a cultural thing or what. Oh god, hiccups.
And while we're on while we're kind of tangentially on the subject of the ending scene and the ending speech, what do you sort of make of that? whether it be like character-wise or thematically?
Oh, man. I don't know. Somebody say something.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean exactly?
What do you think? What message do you think is trying to be communicated with that?
Oh shit!
Fuck.
Are you my English
I'm
teacher?
too tired for this shit.
I mean, this is what
Yeah.
essential viewing is essentially
Yeah,
supposed to be,
no.
and I so much meant to do research before this because
Yeah.
I ordered a Blu-ray copy of this movie because it was $5, but fucking Amazon delayed it. God.
Fuck you, Amazon.
Because I wanted to do research for the movie, but then I realized I would be essentially spoiling
Yeah.
myself
True.
for the
Yeah.
movie.
Glad you
Yeah.
didn't do
Well,
that.
I mean, like, what
that's
did you,
fine.
That's fine, but what did you pick up this time? Is kind of what the question
I'm
is.
Yeah,
like, no, I
or
get
do
that.
we want to start with Pat? See what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you
Kinda
think,
thing?
Pat?
Yeah, put the
Or do-
onus on me.
Or just
Like I got this shit that's ready to drop.
Motherfucker.
Oh God, they got finger guns out. Okay, that's for the other podcast.
Say what?
Say what again?
I want to go home. Where she does the.
It's all on you,
Let's
Pat.
see. What nuggets I got rolling around up in there?
Ooh.
I mean, I have something. If you don't,
Well, there is something I wanted to bring up earlier. It was a point about the briefcase. Just sort of like my preconceptions of the movie versus what it actually was. Sort of like once again, I wasn't expecting a nonlinear narrative, and plus I was kept thinking because I knew the briefcase going in was like it was significant or at the very least mimetic from the movie. So my preconception was I kept thinking this was like a kind of a madcap scramble to like get the briefcase, but the briefcase kept changing hands with the course of the movie, and then there's sort of like you kind of tease about what it is throughout the whole time. But that's another thing how it really doesn't play that big of a part. Like it's significant in a few scenes, basically at the beginning and at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of like it's sort of funny how at the beginning it's critically important that we retrieve the briefcase, and then at the end it's sort of like an afterthought. I mean, it's critical in that it distracts Ringo long enough for Jules to to at least his countermeasures. So that was interesting. But it further illustrates the sort of reversal of the movie, like what happens with Jules' character, how he goes from this very sort of abrasive, antagonistic character to this sort of aggressive, like subduedly aggressive yet strangely merciful character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel as I sort of like I said, it's just another sort of side piece of the movie. And I thought that was interesting.
I was just thinking along the lines of what it means that you talking about the speech.
Or like,
You're poking it. You're trying to poke at something. I'm trying to figure out what you're fucking poking at.
well, I mean, I just want to also pick y'all's brains before I go on to my thing too.
Obviously, like he just spared a bunch of people's lives in a lot of ways, but also like at the cost of their money, their wallets, and things, and their time. So like there was this like angelic kind of moment to him of like playing God, like literally being in control and that sort of thing. As for like a direct message, obviously it's sort of like. I don't really know. I don't really know. I can't really think of the message.
Well, or is there a message?
I don't know if that's the thing about this movie is like, first time I kept trying to pick it apart and try to find a message, and I just didn't find it, or at least I had ideas of like big concepts of like like his soul's in the case and stuff like that. But now that I'm watching it, it's like I don't know if there is a thing other than just like. Kind of coincidence and going with the flow and kind of.
I mean that like I was saying about sort of like with nihilism and also with kind of like the with some of the objects or things within the movie, like the briefcase. I mean, who knows what's in it, but I mean, does it really matter if there's anything in it?
No, obviously it doesn't matter.
Because it's given importance,
Also, like second chances are a thing in this,
yeah,
in a way. Where
yeah.
I mean, Bruce Willis's character got a second chance. Mia got a second chance. Marcellus got a second chance.
Fuck.
In a weird, horrible way.
Yeah.
Marvin didn't.
Marvin didn't get a second chance.
Marvin did not get a second
And
chance.
Poor Marvin.
And Vincent did get a second chance. He was basically given, not a second chance, he did get a second chance in the sense that he survived the cafe, but he ended up going back to the life he had and was shot and killed.
Yeah.
So Samuel L. Jackson got his second chance and things like that. So
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that last part. I mean, it just goes to show that in that moment, he just realizes he's ultimately evil, and he's trying to change that.
Yeah. Sort of what came to my mind when I was like, because I sort of had the same idea as y'all were. I was like, there really isn't anything here. This is just really well written, really well acted, really well characterized, but I don't know how much is here. And I'm going to preface this by saying this is kind of half-baked. It also might seem a little obvious. I'm not saying this is the end-all, be-all. But I was thinking, I started thinking about this in more of a meta sense.
Okay.
And because I would always get caught up on what the ending speech was. I was like, that's really cool, but like, what does this, other than it sounding cool, like he was saying, there's some cold-blooded shit to say before I capped a motherfucker.
Wow. Yeah. Very nice.
But like, is there anything beyond that? And I started thinking about sort of what Tarantino has done throughout his career and is sort of elevating, for lack of a better term, pulp fiction or genre fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of what I think the ending speech is sort of, in a lot of ways, this meta commentary on how a lot of people view genre fiction. In the sense of it's a lesser form, and it's not worth your time. And this is kind of seen throughout a lot of the movie. Like, what are the characters we focus on? The characters are these kind of delinquents. They're the dregs of society. But what I think Tarantino's trying to get with this, or, if you want to get into authorial intent, and that's another can of worms, but is the idea of this is worth your time. This is worth your... And it's actually detrimental and could honestly not be, or could be, I don't want to say deadly, but I mean, to be that hyperbolic, but it can be. Because, especially in film, a lot of what's the term? Like a lot of these pulpier forms of fiction told stories from different perspectives, whether that be just, more outcast of society or even like marginalized society, marginalized people in society. Am I making sense? Is that like kind of out there?
Yeah. No, you're pretty fair.
how is this tied into the speech?
Well, how it ties into the speech, and this also kind of broadens out to more of just Jules and Vincent's discussion throughout the final part of the movie. Because the first part of the movie is them discussing, it's kind of incidental. Like, you get a lot of characterization in that moment, but it seems like, other than just this witty banter between two friends, there really isn't much there. Mm-hmm. But once there is this sort of coincidence that happens, you know, it's almost like when people talk about how when you're in English class, the English teacher reads too much into it. You know, sometimes the blue wallpaper is just blue because the author thought that was the case. And that's sort of, if you think about their kind of dialogue from a more abstract meta perspective, Jules is more of the, this is just a coincidence. This isn't intended. This isn't worth your time. But Jules is sitting here thinking, like, no, that this has meaning. This has purpose.
Oh, okay.
And look what happens to Jules, or it happens to him later in the timeline, but he ultimately dies.
Jules?
I mean, not Jules.
Vincent. Yeah, I was about to say, Vincent.
No, Jules doesn't die.
Yeah, Jules is the one that's saying, no, man, this is a miracle. And Vincent's the one that's saying it's just a freak occurrence. And then he gets shot up by Butch.
And
He doesn't dodge those bullets.
No,
and to sort of get back on, or get to that, to kind of tie that together, is how the speech is delivered. Like Jules said, I didn't give much thought to the speech beforehand. But now that I give thoughts to the speech, he goes on different options of what the speech could mean to him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he goes, and it's almost like he's trying to work out some sort of interpretation. Like, I mean, obviously, but like, if you think about it from like a meta perspective, it's like the movie, like, or not the movie itself, but like genre fiction itself. And like I said, this is sort of, like, Reservoir Dogs is his first movie, and it's kind of this breakout hit. But I feel like he was really trying to make his thesis statement with this movie. Because a lot of his influences are, like, these forgotten movies. A lot of
Spaghetti Western. Martial arts.
Exploitation, blaxploitation movies. Which are and still are seen as lesser. And
cult classics. Pulp Fiction is now, even though it's super popular, it's still considered to some degree a cult classic within a bunch of critics in a critic's world. It's every movie.
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah, of course.
Well, because this is like a really popular movie.
Yeah, but like I never see cult that far away from the word, or a cult classic far away from Pulp Fiction.
It's true.
From what
it just depends on like how deep whatever particular viewer is. Going into the movie, like how deeply they want to consume and think about the movie. But on your train of thought, it's an idea I had thinking about the movie is that there are like a lot of coincidences and a lot of like different people interpreting what these sort of random happenstances mean. Is it random, or is it like some kind of greater force behind it? And to me, it kind of feels like. What if one interpretation be is sort of like maybe like a lifestyle sort of perspective? It's just there's no objective meaning overall, but it depends on how you view it. It may be random happenstance. It may be sort of preordained, but I feel like either one is meaningful to the individual, and each viewpoint is valid.
Yeah, for sure.
And getting what you were saying about how this film is kind of nihilistic, and I could see that to an extent, but it's also like, yeah, like you were saying, there's no like capital T truth, there's no like objective meaning in reality, and it's just kind of, life is just a series of sequential events. But what we do with stories, what we do with narrative is try to make sense and try to apply our own meaning to it. And I think that's sort of what he was getting at with this movie, with the added message of just because this isn't high art doesn't mean it's not worth your time.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
There's not any lesser meaning.
It's as deep as you want it to be.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it's like literally with the briefcase. It's like there's literally nothing in there, but because it's there and because you see it and because Jules and Vincent have a mission, it's important. And I mean, and that's the same thing with the language too. A lot of the language.
Exactly. And it's almost like he's kind of steering you into looking in this look at this movie from a different perspective, from a more abstract thematic perspective. And I know that kind of sounds pretentious, but like that's also kind of the point of what we want to do with this podcast. When I saw that, I'm like, fuck, this is a good idea for a first episode. But because like, you know, at the beginning of the movie, the briefcase is this very important thing. It's this big plot point, this big MacGuffin. But like when turns out it doesn't really matter. It makes you put more focus on the characters, their struggles, and sort of like the thematics, or like we were saying, the coincidences.
Yeah. Something I was going to say about language, though, and there was another favorite line I had, and it was when Butch was in the taxi, was when he said his name. My name's Butch. And Esmeralda's like, what does your name mean? And he's like, this is America. My name doesn't mean shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and like I mean that's just another like incident, like especially with language too, how a cheeseburger is known as a Royale burger, or what was it? He asked what was a Whopper, and he's like I didn't go to Burger King. Or later how they said garçon, but garçon means boy when Ringo calls the lady, or when Butch is talking to Fabienne, and Fabienne says motorcycle, but he's like, no, it's called a chopper.
Damn, all this movie is just doors and the concept of meaning.
Yeah, literally that's what it is. Like that's what you like.
And coincidence.
Like I said, like it's nihilistic, but it's also like there's meaning there, but there's not, and it's just like I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very difficult. It's like this means this. This means that. This does mean this. This does mean that. What does this mean? Here are the three options. I'm going this option. It is the most right option, but these other two options could also be right, in its own way. And then, like, there is no meaning. Vince is no meaning. The only one that does not have, I don't want to say happy, Marcellus does not have a happy ending, but he does get out of it alive.
Yeah, I mean, he's
the only one that doesn't. The only one who does not believe in the power of intervention or meaning is the one who ends up dead,
which is kind of a weird take on like maybe I don't know.
It's not that deep, bro.
I take it back. This is a Christian film.
Yeah, because that was one of the things. Was like when I was thinking of it as like this kind of like nihilistic type of movie, I was like, but the movie kind of rejects that with Jules, and I was like,
yeah.
I don't think like Tarantino's that like super religious or anything, but it being like a religious type thing, I think that's an interesting juxtaposition between like religious or the sacred with narrative and story and like
and the meaning of it all in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. This movie I gotta watch it another time.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited.
I gotta watch it with a notebook in my hand.
Exactly.
And a full night's of sleep.
No, I have a notebook in my backpack right now, and I cannot wait to get Pulp Fiction in the mail because I'm gonna watch it again. I'm gonna take notes because it's like it's still very interesting, especially on the second watch. I need to watch it again. Very good.
Yeah. And like he does succeed in elevating these pulpier ideas, concept, genres to high art. Like this movie won the most prestigious film award you can.
It was 1994.
Which was
Forrest Gump. We're talking Shawshank Redemption. We're talking with Pulp Fiction and probably several other movies that go.
Yeah, like that was 94 was a big year.
It was a huge year where movies that have made ripples throughout literally everything. Schindler's List was 94, wasn't it?
93, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it was that same time.
Time period. Like these movies, they made ripples, and still, the standout movies from the 90s. If you think of 90s movies that stand out as like high art, it's Schindler's List. It's Ants. I don't know if I'd say four.
Wait, what?
Ants.
1998.
Okay, 1998, wrong year. Get it right.
Bug's Life.
Bug's Life is better.
I was gonna say Bug's Life, man. Bug's Life. Replace Forrest Gump with Bug's Life.
Well, comedy doesn't have to be like people can't look down on comedy like you can't explore dark, deeper things and have something affirming said through comedy. So like Forrest Gump, obviously has its theatrical merits. But I'm definitely interested in Cannon because he's one of the people who's seen this multiple times, and I want to know like what this viewing, like what has changed for you, what has been opened up to you. So what's changed and what sort of been your perspective through like this latest viewing for you.
Fuck.
It's also super late while we're recording.
Midnight.
Yeah, we've been going for an hour.
Oh, what has changed?
Any new insights, anything like that?
I appreciate it a lot more now because, like I said, it's been a few years since I've watched it uncut all the way through. It just makes me think of all the weird things that could have happened, because Vincent's character is actually the brother of a character from Tarantino's first film, Reservoir Dogs.
Mm-hmm. He's
it's Vic, right?
I think He's Mr. Blonde.
Yeah, Mr. Blonde. I don't know if his real name was Vic or whatnot, but shit, you gotta forgive me, guys. I'm dog ass tired.
No, it's all good.
It's all good.
I forgot what I was. No, you know, like the scene that I've seen replicated so much. How the fuck did I get so loud? Oh my god, I'm sorry. If anybody's listening, if I'm really loud, tell me to stop.
Stop.
Something like the scene that I've seen so many times that replicated so much is the scene where, you know, Uma Thurman and John Travolta are dancing on the dance floor, his fucking feet out, and it's like that scene, like watching it again, is probably the least memorable. Even though even though actually the set that they're in, the restaurant itself, is actually much more memorable than the dance itself, which is kind of weird for me. I don't know what that's about, but it's just that.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
I got scared.
The one line when Buddy Holly was taking the order, I finally understand what Martin and Lewis and Amos and Andy means.
Okay, tell us, because I have no idea.
Oh my God, it's so terrible.
Oh no.
What?
Talking Martin and Lewis is like Dean Martin and his fucking comedy partner, whatever. Two white guys. Other two fellas, black guys. She had a vanilla shake.
Oh.
That's what Martin and Lewis
Do you want
meant.
chocolate or vanilla?
Wow.
Wow.
There's another race
And it's a
thing.
50s themed restaurant. So
Yeah.
Why isn't there a Jackrabbit Slim's? God damn it. We need one of those.
Probably problematic. I'm probably going to say that.
Probably because of racism.
Yeah, 50s diners are.
Or probably because like it would cost like $10 million to make that damn restaurant.
Yeah.
Actually,
true.
it cost $150,000, and that was the most expensive part of the film.
Oh wow.
And then they tore it down the next day.
Yeah, they did.
Although it was cool to have like almost all the dude waiters are dressed up as Zorro. I want a Zorro costume.
Which that was
Yeah, I didn't notice that until this watch.
know,
I was
right?
like, yeah, a lot of the dude waiters are fucking Zorro.
Yeah.
Also, like Steve Buscemi's playing a waiter, and in Reservoir Dogs, he didn't like to tip waiters.
Yeah,
So
that's
that comes full
awesome.
circle right there.
Yeah.
that's fun. That's fun.
It's the Quentin Tarantino cinematic. It all takes place in the same.
Honestly, it feels like it does in a lot of ways.
Well,
QTCU.
it does, technically. I think all of his movies take place in, like...
Samuel L. Jackson's a vampire.
Oh my God, if you think about it like that, the briefcase, it was the jewels and the diamonds from the heist in Reservoir Dogs. And to get down below, because spoilers, Mr. Pink, Steve Buscemi's character, was probably one of the only ones that made it out alive. He was the only one that made it out alive. And now he's a fucking waiter at Jackrabbit Slim's, not getting tipped because he's a fuckhead.
Oh wow. Yep.
Yes.
And
he-
Django was killing the KKK.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
It's all the
thing
same
that
universe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean,
Does that mean Tarantino's last film is in space?
I mean, I think
Oh,
the only
I
thing
hope
that
so.
ties all of his films together is the Red Apple cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like everywhere in
Yep.
his movies.
I would love to see a sci-fi Tarantino.
I think we're getting a Star Trek, right?
He wants so bad to do a fucking Star Trek movie.
I forgot that was a story that came out a while back.
see, that's weird.
Like, it's been, like... He's been, like, vocal about wanting to do that for years.
I would actually think that might be a lot of fun.
But see, that's weird though, because it's like Star Trek has always dealt with, like, you know, racism and xenophobia, and it's like a lot of his movies have racist shit in it.
I mean, it deals with. But that's a big controversial thing. I don't know if we want to get into that here.
That's up to y'all.
You know, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way where it is very racist. It also, I don't know. It's hard. I don't want to. It's difficult. It's something.
It's definitely, like, super complicated.
And I'm not a part of the community, so it's very difficult for me to I can't even talk on it really because it's just not
Yeah,
something that I experience or deal with.
Yeah, it's just
So-
it's like literally just a bunch of white dudes being like, oh.
Yeah. So but at the same time, I don't know. It's a product of its time. It really is. I mean, like I remember whenever I was young, and maybe it's just because we're from Central Alabama, but when
That
we were
definitely doesn't help.
watching it from young, when we were younger, I didn't even notice those words, those phrases and things like that. But now that we're older,
I cringed every single time.
every single time.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I first watched it, I didn't watch with subtitles, so like I didn't notice a lot.
Did you watch with ears? I just want to know.
Is that crap against people who can't watch movies without
I'm
subtitles?
sorry, Pat.
Like-
oh my God, he's got a gun.
Like no, literally, I didn't even think about it. But like, I did not start watching movies with subtitles until I started hanging out with the lads. Like that was never a thing.
I
But
love subtitles.
No, I love it too. It's just like I never thought about it. I was just like, it makes things easier.
Now you can know what they're saying.
I mean, I always knew what they're saying, except
Are
for
you sure?
except for Pulp Fiction. I look like watching it now and seeing all the shit that's in there. I'm like, Jesus.
Sounds like selective memory.
It could be, and that's the thing is that we did grow up with it. It was something that was very common for us, at least for us. It was very, very common.
Oh my
certain
God.
words, certain phrases, and things like that.
It's disgusting.
We've kind of
Yeah.
been not necessarily I don't want to say deprogrammed, but programmed to look at them differently and more critically, and actually see those words and see those phrases and see how they hurt and harm people, and to where every single time that was on screen, one of us in the room was like, like
Oh yeah.
yikes.
Yeah, there was
know?
and it wasn't even just like the racial slurs either. It was some other things where, like, looking back on it, even though I love this movie, it's still like,
Yeah,
yikes.
there are things that are almost inexcusable, and I don't know.
The Inuit scene where it's young Bruce Willis sitting in front of the TV.
Yeah,
Oh,
there-
yeah. Part of me thinks that was probably like some show
Real TV show.
real TV show he watched as a kid.
No, because I remember that was an actual show like way back in the day, because the show was like so bare bones cheap that they couldn't afford to animate Mao's movie, so they just chopped in. They just put over actual people speaking over the mouths
Yeah.
because they didn't have the money to animate lips moving. So that's just literally just a static cutout picture with like this. It's very jarring. Probably traumatized a lot of kids back
Yeah.
in the early 50s.
Yeah.
Of just like a mouth movie, and that's why Conan O'Brien parodied it in one of his segments on his late night talk show. 'Cause that's what that segment was. It had just a static picture with just mouths moving, and of course, like with there's a lot of very troubling language in the movie, and of course it is very deliberate, and your sort of reaction to it. It's your choice. It's your feeling. However you feel about it, it's valid, and it's your prerogative how to consume the movie, what you feel about it, because it's very loaded language. It's very loaded feelings, and whatever person that comes to it approaches it differently, and however you feel it is valid. The movie is not going to be for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah.
and that kind of comes back down to what we were talking about earlier about things we would change. For me, I think that the one scene in particular I change is the scene with Tarantino himself in the movie, and he's talking about what's his
Marvin.
Marvin's
Yeah.
body in the car. And
He says it so
Yeah,
many
and
times in
it's
like a minute.
And it's weird because throughout the entire movie, I think the only person that says it is both Samuel L. Jackson and Vince Vaughn? What's his name? Not Vince Vaughn. What's the guy's name who plays Marcellus?
Oh, Ving Rhames.
Vin Rhames, yeah. I think those two are the only people that say it until Tarantino. Neither of them say it.
Well, the racist
Rednecks.
rednecks.
Oh, and the racist
Oh,
rednecks.
yeah.
Okay, racist rednecks makes sense. They had a fucking Confederate flag on the wall. Okay, Samuel L. Jackson, and Ving Rhames. Yeah, they're saying it, and it's part of their it's part of the culture, right? Fucking Tarantino comes in and he says it with a vindictive sort of nature to himself, very violent nature to himself, and it's very intentional, and it seems like he's very much having fun with it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's something we kind of talked and sort of joked about. Like, like Tarantino seems to take taking away, like running with the privilege. Like, oh, if I have a black friend that lets me say a certain word, and I can just say it as much as I want, or within 10 feet of a black person I know, I can just go ham.
Yeah, and I made this joke that I stole from these guys. The guys have a YouTube channel called Double Toasted. They're the black film critics, and they take issue with Tarantino's use of racial language, and they said I swear to God, I think he wants to be black so bad that he literally, like, you know, because he didn't have to cast himself in that role either. And
it was his direct. He was the writer. He was the director. He was the person who cast himself into that role. So this was him, like, giving himself a pass to say whatever he wanted.
And it makes no sense.
And it makes no sense. And it's completely inappropriate. It's completely inappropriate. And I do really think that's one scene that I think that needs to be not removed. It needs to stay in the movie because it is what it is.
But
it's
definitely a big point of criticism.
But I do think it's a major point of criticism, and I think it's a very valid point of criticism that he was very. I mean, like, it's one thing to have racist freaks, you know, violent rapist freaks say it. It's another to have the director, writer, and etc. Say it.
Like, giving himself privilege. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
And it's not. I could see someone making the bad faith argument of him, like, oh, this is him saying, you know, how, like, up-to-dee-doo white people also use it, but it doesn't feel like it's framed that way.
Not, just because an up-to-date white person would say it does not mean it has to be written into a movie.
Yeah.
This is a movie. This is a creative.
This is a completely fictional story.
If you're drawing, you're responsible for whatever you draw. If you draw someone naked, you draw someone naked. If you draw a flower, you draw a flower. Mm-hmm. If you're writing a movie, you don't have to be like, let's be as realistic as possible. They had a fucking glowing briefcase. He doesn't have to say.
And literally the little square Uma Thurman.
And again, we are all white dudes here, so we're. You know, so it's difficult because we, you know, I recognize that we recognize that it's problematic, and it's something that, you know, comes up time and time again if we ever get back to another Tarantino movie at some point.
Yeah, especially more like Hateful Eight or Django or movies like that.
And whether or not he has any vitriol, or if he's actually being hateful, I can't attest to, and I'm not going to try and play that advocate there.
Yeah,
I just think that it's inappropriate, and I think that it's not something that I don't think it was appropriate then, and I'm not sure. I definitely know it's not appropriate now.
I do think he has a respect and affinity for black culture. Like I said, this is coming from a white dude, so, you know, take everything I say with a grain of salt. But it still doesn't make any of that okay.
I think he has. But I don't know if he has a thing for black culture or if he has a thing for cinematic black culture, which again is
not all of black culture.
And that, well, no, it's a view of black culture that comes from the perspective of Hollywood, which is predominantly white men. So so it's very difficult it's very difficult to say that he has respect for black culture when I'm not black and I'm not a part of that world.
Or is it like respect or fetishization?
I think it's more fetishization. I really do. Same thing with feet.
Yep.
God, this fucking feet in his movies.
John
Bruce
Travolta's
Willis.
sock feet.
And Bruce Willis, dirty feet.
All right. Do we have any final things we want to say about the movie?
I don't know. I think that's it. I mean, there's.
Should we go around and say like our final yay or nay recommendations?
Oh yeah. Is it an essential
What
viewing?
we see?
The star scores. How you want to cap it off?
And I say just do whatever you think is right. Let's start with Wenzel this time.
Oh, star score. I still keep it at 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 stars. And is it an essential viewing? Yeah, I think it's very much essential. I mean, like Cody said, it's not very deep, but the thing is, it's still very lively, and there's still you can still find some shells at the bottom of the ocean floor. It's some pretty stuff. I don't know if you want to. But yeah, what about you, Pat?
A star score, I'd probably give it close to a 4. Would I call it essential viewing? It's a very your Bible is very. Mm-hmm. I would say if you if somehow you gone through this whole movie and sort of gone through this whole sort of conversation without seeing it, maybe that's good. Sort of get to if there's a movie that you're unsure about, maybe uncomfortable with, do as much research as you can on it, and then make an informed decision whether or not this film will be for you. I know it won't be for everyone. I feel like I can't recommend it to everyone. So I would just say be cautious going in and do your research.
So that's a maybe.
I would. I don't really like scales and stars and decimal points and all that shit.
You got to give it a 4.257 Canon.
Well,
Nothing
Pat
pisses
said
me
maybe.
off more than when
So.
IGN's like, "I'll give this an 8.7." Fuck off! Are you kidding me?
Round that bitch up.
But I would definitely consider this essential viewing. To me, you don't necessarily have to have a budget out the ass. A budget out the ass to Jesus Christ.
Emphasis on ass.
To just film two people talking, and if they are having an entertaining conversation, that's really all you need. I guess in a way that's why I like most of Tarantino's work, and I guess a huge chunk of Kevin Smith's work, because that's basically all of Kevin Smith's
He's
stuff.
very dialogue proficient. And
But yeah, I've grown up with Pulp Fiction. I know that may be weird to say. Like I said, a lot of us were
We're very young.
children when we saw this movie for the first time.
Probably shouldn't have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Cody forced me into it.
I still enjoy this movie, and essential viewing, yes.
Okay.
I like star rating. I'd say it's a 4 out of 5. I still enjoy the movie. I would say I'd recommend it. I'd recommend watching this because I feel like if you've never seen a Tarantino movie, it might be a little rough going into it.
All
but
of
it's
them are
also
rough.
probably might just be a good idea to just jump right in so you can start off strong and you can come down as you go on through time.
I personally think that I would, first of all, I want to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
There's a half point there that I'm taking away from there because of some unnecessary things throughout. We didn't even get to touch on the rape scene, but it definitely should. We're not going to go there, but it definitely. There's things in this movie that were for shock value and for intense value that I don't think should be there. However, I do think this is essential viewing under certain categories, right? Overall essential viewing, maybe. It's not. Do I think it's a defining movie of some sort? I do think so. I think if you're really looking for a dialogue-heavy movie, if you want to see good dialogue, good character interactions, and great character growth, especially of some of our modern, most popular actors, then I definitely think this is essential viewing. I think this is also essential viewing if you're looking at Quarantino. It's what I call him. It's what I hate saying Quentin Tarantino. It's just so fucking long.
No, go for it.
I just told him call him Quarantino at this point. If you're really going for that Quarantino, like you want to go into his filmography, I disagree with Colton and say that this is a rough one. I think this is quintessential Quentin.
Oh,
Yes, without a doubt.
This is the constant. This is his defining movie to me. A lot of people see it as Django. A lot of people see it as Inglourious Bastards. They're all really good movies. I've seen all those movies, but even the new one, the Hollywood,
Once Upon a Time
in Hollywood. I thought that one was my new favorite, but going back and watching Pulp Fiction, there's just something so comforting and I don't want to say comforting. It's very, it's like eating hot wings, right? Like it's something you love and
something
enjoy.
familiar,
Right? And you feel like you're with friends when you watch it. Like you
were.
Well, shut up.
It felt very personal.
It feels very personal. So if you're looking for a Quarantino, like a full on who he is as an individual and movie, if you're looking for like greatest directors of, or not say greatest, but most influential directors of our decade.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that sort of thing, yeah, you're gonna have your Spielberg. Yeah, you're gonna have your Lucas. You're gonna have your James Cameron. I would say you would have your Tarantino in there as well.
Yeah.
This would be the one movie you watch from Tarantino.
I agree. I think this is definitely his best. Even with the very, very, very problematic issues aside, I sort of agree with Cannon in the sense of like giving like any sort of like numerical values kind of arbitrary. But like if I were to make a hypothetical top 10, I could definitely see it easily being in the top 5 just for how much this movie has meant to me. But also like Pat was saying, definitely do your research before watching this movie because it does have some very intense scenes and gratuitous, shocking content that isn't for everybody.
Right.
Yep.
And, well, with that note, you can check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Overcast. Give us a rating, review, helps us out a lot. We upload essential viewings on Wednesdays. We're going to try to do these twice a month. But like to start out, we're probably just going to do them once a month until we can get in a routine in the schedule. This is going to be the first time I actually use my Twitter as a plug.
Defining moment here.
Twitter debut.
Now you're gonna see him retweeting porn.
God, fuck off.
This time he's alive for real.
For realsies. You can follow me at John Odinson 12 on Twitter. I don't really post much, but I'll probably be posting updates for essential viewing as they come along. And with that, let's get everybody else's plugs.
My name is Cody. You can follow me at CODDOC11. That's CODDOC11. I've enjoyed this. This is fun. This is a fun new thing where we deep dive, and I'm very excited to see the future of essential viewing.
Colt, you follow me on Twitter at ColtD00. Like Cody said, this was fun. I did enjoy this.
Let's try to do it a little earlier next time.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'm a little dead, and I feel like I've only ate ice cream for dinner.
Maybe because that's what you did.
Everybody offered you food.
I don't want to steal people's food.
You're not stealing.
The food I tried to eat was rotten.
Wait, rotten? What?
It's
Yeah.
a long story.
Oh, God.
Tuna goes bad in the freezer, apparently.
Oh, I am Cannon. You can find me at that Cannon Guy on Twitter, and I promise next time I will be well rested. Working in a restaurant in a college town is hot dog garbage. So, and you can also find me at the bed here real soon.
Yeah.
If you're out working, going to the restaurant this weekend or just any time, be respectful of the people that work there.
Tip your waiters.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't be Steve Buscemi.
Yes.
Buddy
Don't
Holly.
be Steve Buscemi in Reservoir
Don't be a
Dogs.
buddy.
Yeah,
Holly.
don't have big wet eyes. This is Patrick. Thank you all for listening to this. Is a brand new show we're trying out, and we hope you enjoy it. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at John Lost His Name. You can follow my art on Facebook at John Lost His Name Art.
This is Wenzel. You can follow me on Twitter at Wenzel Wilkie. You can follow my art Instagram at World of Wenzy. Thank you for listening. I'm really excited for this as well. We have some fun stuff planned. Thank you for Cannon also for coming on in this.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I feel really bad for being as tired as I am.
No, you did.
No, you don't have to
How dare
apologize
you feel
for
tired
that.
after
No,
working
you-
an entire day, then watching a movie for hours, hanging out, shooting the shit, and then
Eating ice cream.
breaking down this movie.
You gotta admit we're kind of fun though, right?
Oh, I had a blast.
Yeah, I know.
Like I said, like I haven't seen this movie in a long time, and I highly enjoyed this.
Yeah, and you brought dialogue, so that and
Barely any. Like I think I talked more in the Rib episode than this one. That's
You
saying
did.
something.
You did fine.
yeah.
All right,
No, something else I should say too. When I said something about the seashell and coral reef, don't take coral from coral reef. Don't do that. That's bad. If you just take a shell, a little.
Don't take anything, actually. Fuck that. They're dying.
Not if it's on the.
They're
If it's on the
bleaching.
beach. If it's on the beach, if it's just a shell is not a coral. There's a difference.
all right,
if it's on the-
All right. Have we decided what movie we're doing next?
I mean,
Or do we want to wait and post that? To
We'll
Twitter?
wait and post that.
we'll wait and post
Okay.
it.
All right.
Don't worry, we have over 200 movies on our roster, so anything can pop up.
But that's
Two
not.
girls, one cup.
But that's
We should do
not.
a randomizer for it. Anyways, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
I do want to mention that if you are still listening to this right now, we're still doing AYCH weekly.
No, we're not. Tanner's dead.
This will be on our SoundCloud. I think it's going to be put in a separate playlist. I think we're going to.
We're going to make it second.
Yeah.
It'll be in our main feed on Spotify. Not Spotify. Well, yeah, it'll be on our main feed on all of our things, but on SoundCloud you can actually go and you'll be able to listen through each. So this is going to be it's part of AYCH, but it's also its own thing.
It's
so
the AYCH podcast network. We're growing every
we're
day.
growing with the same people.
Yep.
All right. Then that's it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So long.
Feet.